Alright everyone, welcome back again to more of The Hungry Lamb. I honestly gotta say, I am enjoying the cast so far. I love the expressions each of these characters deliver upon, especially with the voice actors in general, because they're just, you can tell, they can elicit such emotions from these characters, especially in these, in this particular story, the trying times they're going through, and sometimes it's just heart-wrenching, but you love the type of emotion they can get out of you, and I want to see where these characters end up from, you know, from their beginnings to their middles all the way to the end. So, if anything, guys, we're going to continue on and see how it goes from there. So, hope you all continue to enjoy. Thank you again for the love and support. And here we go. She asked slowly, awaiting my answer. We're already off to a... Whew, what a way to start this thing. Let me go to save. Boom. I'm gonna answer with the no dialogue. I kept quiet, unsure how to answer her. Even if she was telling the truth, I couldn't easily help her escape. Leaving aside whether Tong would agree. Just thinking about myself, I won't get paid until I finish the job, delivering them. If I didn't get them to their destination, I'd anger Yin-san's boss, lose my cash, and make an enemy. Sacrificing my own gain and taking risks for their sake, all in the name of doing a good deed? It wasn't my style. Or was it the way of the wolf? Ah, man, and you can see how sad she looks now. Mansui's eyes dimmed as she heard my reply, then she looked away without a word. The white mist clouded her expression, making it hard for me to see. After a moment, I caught a soft murmur. I don't like the sound of that. I watched her from afar, mulling over her words. She probably knew I couldn't let her go no matter what. Knew she had to go to Luoyang, and was able to avenge her sister's death with peace of mind, right? Poor thing. How could you take revenge all by yourself? Ugh. Wondered if she was telling the truth about the swine demon. The way she acted sometimes made me think her words weren't even completely false. Could her words actually have some truth mixed in? Maybe it wasn't all lies. Before we hit Luoyang, I had to find some chances to dig into this. Felt like that lamb was hiding something from me. Yin-san and Tong also seemed to be hiding something. Too many mysteries. Annoying. Last night, after Mansui and I bathed, we put on some clothes from the inn. After taking the lambs to relieve themselves in the inn's outhouse, I ushered them back into their room. After locking up, I went to bed. I had the lambs change back into their washed clothes, and that's when Tong showed up at the inn.
梁啊，我就知道你会早起，果然不假。
It's past mid-morning, not exactly early. Why the grin? Back from some fun?
是啊，李贵那边新来了几个姑娘，其中一个是真的漂亮，简直是在世西施啊。
You've seen Shishi?
没见过，但总之昨天那姑娘很美就是了。小杨呢？他们在哪儿？
Just changed clothes. They're resting in the room.
那你叫他们吧，咱准备去陕州了。
Hey, get out of the room. I yelled to the lambs on the second floor of the inn.
梁爷，我的裤裙还没有干，穿着有些凉。
No time to fuss. Wear 'em wet for now. The sun will dry 'em soon.
哦，好。
I heard Hong's response. Shortly after, the lambs entered the inn's main hall.
哟，你们都洗了澡，差点让星爷我都认不出来了啊！一个个都长得挺水灵啊。哎呀，要不是这单足够肥，我和你梁爷就该把你们独吞了。我们一人取2个，找个山里生娃子去。
cut it out with that nonsense. Still stuck on women?
哎，凉，你也真是开不起玩笑。哦啊，对了，我给小羊们带了礼物啊。
Goodies.
小羊们，都过来！
Tung yelled out, and the lambs clustered around him. He tossed a cloth bundle onto the inn's wooden table, then untied the knot securing the cloth. The cloth unfurled at the corners, revealing shiny red candy balls.
哎呀，来的路上我看到街边有卖糖墩的啊，便给你们买了些，来吃吧。
Oh yeah, like that's gonna make up for all the crap you put them through. He grinned, explaining where the candy balls came from and inviting the lambs to grab some. Yeah, you're smart. Be hesitant about that. The lambs looked at each other. They all wanted the candy, but nobody moved first.
快拿呀，愣着干啥？一人抓一块，再不拿我就收起来了啊！
He shouted again and pretended to take the candy balls back. Finally, unable to resist, Hong grabbed a piece and gave it to her sister before taking for herself. Mansui and Chonghua took some as well. The lambs started munching on their candy balls. I've had these candy balls once before. Probably sugared up berries, sour and sweet. Loved them as a kid. No wonder the lambs were all over them. Strange to see Tung being so nice. I peeked at him. He was watching the lambs eat, a smile in his eyes. Did he lace those candies with something? Lightly biting his lip, lost in thought as he watched them. I don't like that. I don't like that look. After the lambs gobbled up the candy balls, we hit the road. Our next stop was Shanzhou. It's even bigger than Huanzhou, the busiest place along our journey apart from Luoyang. It'd take us another 3 or 4 days to get there from Wenchang. We bought some supplies and headed into the mountains east of Wenchang. As soon as we hit the mountain paths, we hardly said a word. After the lambs annoyed me with their chatter yesterday, today's silence made me feel off. I see he already misses the noise. Tonight, I'm on first watch. Tung and the lambs were all asleep. Feeling a bit bored, I strolled over the luggage hanging off the saddle and pulled out the wooden box with the shadow puppets. It saved us when we ran into those soldiers last time. Since then, Tung hasn't griped about me carrying this box along. Oops. I was planning to buy some donkey hides and steaks in Wenchang. Make some puppets to kill time. But rushed too much, totally forgot. Guess I'll grab them in Shanzhou. Bigger place, more stuff.
梁叶又在翻木箱子，是想再学吗？
I see you don't know how to go to sleep either. As I opened up the box of shadow play, I heard Mansui's soft voice from behind. I looked at her. Didn't confirm, didn't deny either.
那给我解开。
What? She grinned and nodded towards the rope at her waist. Ah, friggin' hell. It is laced. That guy frickin' jugged the candy. I helped Mansui undo the rope, then we found a spot near the camp to do our thing. What? What? I picked up the wooden box and started walking ahead, with her following behind.
梁叶，
Oh, okay. I misunderstood that. I was worried for a second. She saw about the rope that's attached to her. So okay, we're good. Oh, that scared me for a second. I was like, no! I hadn't gone far when she called out. What is it?
走路的时候能牵着我的手吗？路有点黑，我怕踩空跌下山去。
She looked up, waiting for my answer. Alright, well, I'm gonna save here too. Alright, we'll be nice. Okay. She reached out her hand and I started by grabbing her arm. But it was awkward since her arm was short, so I just held her hand directly. Her hand was small, and my palm nearly covered her whole hand. It felt bony, with soft skin but little flesh, and the bones underneath were clear. Hey, why didn't you ask me to hold your hand when it was dark before?
当时怕梁叶听了后发火，不敢提。
And now you're not scared?
怕还是怕的， 只是现在更了解良夜了。我知道良夜气量大，不会因为小事发火。
The last knew how to talk. Right here is good. We walked about 50 steps and found a cliff. We sat down there. Matsui opened the wooden box and started sorting through its contents. Did your dad teach you shadow play?
前几年家里还有余粮的时候，爹爹都会在晚上教我。
What was he like?
爹爹长得和良夜差不多高，身体强壮，待人温和。干农活的时候，也是我们村里最勤奋的。他对我也很好。家里最困难的时候，有人来问要不要卖女儿，他没有卖我，还把那人骂了一顿。我记得一次躺在他身边睡觉的时候，听到他的梦话里都是我。他希望我以后长大，嫁个好人家，吃一辈子的饱饭。
Your dad seems like a good man. But I'm a bit confused. If you love your dad so much, why leave him behind to seek revenge for your sister?
之前就跟良夜说过呀，姐姐的鬼魂一直缠着我，给我托梦，我没有办法，必须要给她报仇。
I glanced at Mansui, wondering if what she said about her sister was real or made up. Years of experience gave me a gut feeling. Her stories about her dad felt genuine, but when it came to her sister, I had my doubts.
良夜的爹爹是什么样的人？
Just as I was doubting her words, she asked me a question as well. It's been quite a few years now. I need to think. What sort of man was my dad? He was actually a decent guy. After hesitating for a moment, I gave my dad that kind of evaluation. My mother died early. She passed away when I was born, and he raised me alone, never remarried. He was a trader for years, hauling goods from Henan to Hebei, sometimes even to the capital. I often tagged along. But he had his faults. Two things stand out. First, he couldn't kick the drinking habit. It often got in the way, and when he was drunk, he'd sometimes lash out at me. Left a scar on my arm once when I was young. Second, he was stubborn as a mule. Being a merchant himself, he insisted I follow suit, but I wasn't cut out for dealing with people. Wouldn't have done well in business. In the days before he passed, we argued plenty about what I should do. Never did come to an agreement. Then he was gone.
我很想知道，良夜本来想做什么呀？
What's it to you? Stop prying. Let's just do the shadow play.
好，
Mansui nodded and helped me get ready for the shadow play. We lit a fire and set up the white screen. She sat behind it. I sat in front. She arranged the puppets and took up the sticks to start tonight's show. Mansui did the shadow play, and this time, I finally heard the three heroes battle Lubu all the way through. I didn't stop halfway due to fear. Even though my heart still raced and I sweated when puppet weapons clashed, I didn't look away and saw it through. Afterward, she taught me for another hour. Seeing her looking tired and worrying that Tongue might wake up, I suggested we call it a night. On the way back, we chatted for a bit.
对了，良夜，有件事想提醒你一下。
Yes?
星夜自从那晚出去住了后，有点不太对劲。
What do you mean?
他明显对我们更好了，送了糖墩儿给我们吃，也不再是骂骂咧咧的了。
Yeah, it is pretty iffy of him. Isn't that a good thing?
不对，这不是好事。良夜，我有点怕。星夜看我们的眼神不太对。
Yeah, I remember. I didn't like it. I thought he drugged you girls. Ugh. Mansui said it seriously, and I sat there pondering her words carefully. Now I need to keep a close watch on Tongue in the days ahead. After that, we trekked for 3 more days. In the daytime, we kept moving, and at night, if Mansui was up, I watched her do shadow play. I started getting the hang of it, setting up the screen, adjusting the fire, and moving the shadows around. I even picked up some lines from the three heroes battle Lubu. But without instruments or more materials like donkey, hides, and sticks, I couldn't learn everything until we got to Shanzao. As Matsui mentioned, Tung's been acting strange since that night he went out. Before, if a lamb needed to go, he'd never be happy about it. If he was in a good mood, he might joke about it, calling them pee machines. And if he was in a bad mood, he'd get mad, not letting them go, and might even act like he was gonna hit them. But now, when the lambs need to go, he'll agree with a smile, and even help Q untie the rope from around their waist. He also became more generous with the lamb's rations. Before, when he handed out rations, he was always stingy, but now he's become very generous, making sure the lambs eat until they're almost full each time. I don't like where this may be going. He even often said, when we get to the city of Shanzao, I'll treat you to a good meal. This really wasn't like him. It was definitely unusual. What the hell is that guy up to? The night before we got to Shanzao, it was Tung's turn to keep watch. Okay, I'm hoping Liang here keeps watch as well, over him. I ate my rations, saw the lambs were sleeping, and figured it was a good time to have a talk with Tung. Tung. I called out to him.
怎么了？
He looked at me, puzzled. Let's find a quiet spot to chat. Got something I want to talk about. I talked to Tung seriously, then stood up. Tung got up too and followed me. After walking about 30 steps, we reached a spot where the lambs couldn't see us.
干嘛呀，梁？神神秘秘的，大晚上的有什么事儿找我？
Tung frowned, tilted his head, and asked me with confusion. Tung, I feel like something is off with you these past couple of days. Ever since you met Li Gui in Wenshang, you've been acting different. There it is.
啊？我怎么没觉得？哪里不一样了？
I just feel like you've been extra nice to these lambs all of a sudden, more caring than before. And I just can't shake the feeling that you're hiding something from me.
瞒着你？哎呦，梁爷，这是你的错觉吧？
You're also a terrible liar, dude.
我啊，这是相处久了，不烦他们了，自然就会对他们好一些。这有什么好奇怪的吗？
I can smell the BS from here, Tung. No, being nicer doesn't explain such a big change. Tung, we've known each other for 5 years. If you have anything to hide from me, I can see it now. There's definitely something you're not telling me about. I looked directly at Tung, my eyes sharp. He seemed uneasy and cleared his throat before speaking up.
行，你非要知道，那我就告诉你吧。其实我本来也没想瞒你，原本打算到洛阳再告诉你的。我从李贵那边知道，我们被尹三儿那小子贪了一笔钱，尹三儿给我们400两是给少了。收小羊的人其实给了2000两，按照道上的规矩，尹三儿至少要给我们500两，他多黑了100两。李贵给我指了一条明路，他介绍了一个人，让我们到洛阳城里去找李贵介绍的人，可以逼尹三儿把多吃的钱吐出来。
Tung started talking and spilled the beans of what he'd hidden from me. Yin-san cheated us out of 100 towels? Exactly, that seems petty and small. I feel like he's lying about that. Was that it? No. Something's still not adding up. When he spoke, he wouldn't look me in the eye. See? Exactly. Fucking called it. Plus, Tung, you're still hiding something from me. I might not know much about trading, but even I can tell that 2,000 towels for 4 lambs is too much, especially during a famine. You can buy a lamb for just a few towels, or a few dozen at most. Even if our lambs look better, they can't be that expensive.
我哪知道啊？这次就是给钱特别多的大肥羊，我不一开始就跟你说了。
And you're still lying to me. Okay. That's not what I'm talking about. I lowered my voice, interrupting Tung angrily. Tung, I need to know where these lambs are headed and how they'll be treated. You've been keeping something from me. There's a reason for such a big payout. It can't be for nothing. If you don't come clean about what you've been hiding, when we reach Shanzao, I'll keep the lambs and find out myself. I got really mad at Tung and asked him each question one by one. He looked at me, seeing how serious I was, and bit his lip. Then surprisingly, he started laughing.
哎呀，梁啊，你还真是铁了心想知道啊。其实本来也没什么不好告诉你的，只是我太了解你了。你听后必定怪我之前没说清楚，或者畏手畏脚，不想继续做这活了。
Tongue chuckled oddly as he spoke to me.
而且，有些事你不知道，比知道要安全。搞不好有一天，我会因为知道这事儿被杀了。你若是不知道，还能保命。哪怕如此，你还想知道吗？
Cut the crap and just tell me already. After that strange laugh, Tongue turned serious and stared right at me. This time, I saw a bit of kindness in his eyes. Even though we're both selfish wolves, we've been traveling together for 5 years. This was his last warning, really hoping I wouldn't find out. But I had to know. Spill it. I hesitated for a moment, then spoke to Tongue with seriousness.
行吧，那我就都给你讲清楚吧。
Tongue chuckled with a mix of mockery and sadness, then he started explaining.
其实我们这次送的小羊，不是要送去给肥羊养的，而是要送去给某个大人物做寿宴。
Birthday feast? What does that mean?
字面意思。
Just what it sounds like. I didn't quite get it.
洛阳城里有位大人，他天生富贵命，一辈子不愁吃穿，整日只需寻欢作乐，传宗接代。几年前，他玩腻了寻常的事，便有了一个怪异的癖好。每年他诞辰将近，他都会从穷苦人家收上几只小羊，用作菜人。李贵、尹三儿还有一个我也不知道是谁，分布在3个地方的人牙子，都是给他做事儿的。这3个地方轮着来，每年都有一个地方会给那位大人卖几只小羊，顺序一般不会变。哎呀，只有今年比较特别，那位大人竟要了2次。李贵不久前已经送了几只小羊，但那位大人却找尹三儿又新要了几只。
Why?
李贵跟我说，他猜那位大人是没有按照惯例做事儿，便想补一次，重新叫一次小羊。
The usual way? What's the usual way in eating people?
梁，真不知你是真傻还是在装傻。你以为那位大人500两买一只小羊会直接煮了吃？
Oh, God.
那位大人又不是真的饿啊，他吃人的理由跟我们这些穷神上身的人可不一样。他吃人不是为了饱腹，不是为了活命，只是为了满足他填不满的欲望。那位大人10几年前就腻了女色，开始近男色；10年前又腻了男色，便开始找小羊。找了没2年，便有了吃小羊的癖好。那位大人重300-400斤，腰比水缸粗，像是一只大蟒蛇。他喜欢玩弄那些小羊，压着它们，贴在他们的脸庞，亲耳去听那最清晰的呜咽声、哭泣声。
Yeah, that's how to react too. Blurred and hearing that ringing noise. This is all. I don't want to hear this.
等大人到了最尽兴的时候，小羊也差不多被压得骨头快断了，喘不过气了。这时候，大人再去活吃它们，就像是蟒蛇吃猎物一样。李贵跟我说，他送的小羊里有一只很烦、嘴碎又不懂事儿。他猜测那位大人可能是被这小羊气到，在惯例前便杀了他。哎呀，不过我们这次不用担心，新补的这个小哑巴不仅长得好看，懂事儿还不说话。我估摸着，那位大人就喜欢这样的。
Unless she slits his throat, I don't know. Tongue told me the details. Hearing what he said, I couldn't help but tighten my fist. I thought being a bandit for years would toughen me up, but just imagining what Tung described made me feel sick. Who's that big shot, really? I asked, my voice trembling, as I inquired about the identity of that big shot.
梁啊，我本来是不想让你知道的，但都讲到这儿了，你也没什么回头路了，不如就一起和我担着。那位大人呐，做事儿像蟒，本人更是一条通天蟒。
Ain't no way, based on the description you described, is that guy, in any sense of the word, heavenly.
他呀，当年差点化了龙，哪怕是京城里的万岁爷，都要给他面子，叫他一声叔。
Python. Heavenly Python. I knew what Python signifies, and I knew who the person was that even the Emperor must address as uncle. If it's in Luoyang, then the identity of that big shot was even clearer. He's truly a towering figure, someone I absolutely can't afford to offend.
梁，不要想着这次的活就这么算了，这些事你既然都听了，咱就得做到底。这活如果我们中途不做了，不光是钱没了，命也得丢了。毕竟那位大人不会想留一个不做事的活口，所以你好自为之啊，不如就跟我一样去接受这件事。在最后的这段路上，咱俩都对那些小羊好一些，免得他们死后成了鬼，找咱们寻仇。
Okay, so that's why he's nice to them. He's trying to ease his conscience. It's a lot better than the dark things that I thought was going to happen. But either way, it still isn't good.
他们生在那样的家里，本就是要被饿死的，不如咱陪他们最后过段好日子，再送他们早点上路。
Nah, buddy. Nah, buddy. I don't agree with that at all.
不过我也有想过啊，若是让小羊开开心心的去见那位大人，兴许我们能多领一些赏钱，你说是吧？
Tung joked with me, but I stayed silent, caught in a storm of feelings. A weight pressed down on my chest, lingering. Shock, anger, disappointment, worry, and confusion churned inside me. The swine demon eats people. Her sister was eaten. She seeks revenge for her sister. Now I knew. Mansui told me stories I once doubted, but most of them were true. Now it's a matter of what we're gonna do now. But before that, we're going through another flashback. Grandma was buried, her body resting in the backyard. The day after her death, my brother and I each had a bowl of thin porridge before Mom put us to bed. After making sure we were asleep, Mom quietly called out to Dad. Dad gently lifted Grandma's body from the bed and wrapped her in a straw mat. They carefully carried Grandma out of the house, and Mom closed the door behind them as they left. Then right when I was dozing off, I heard the sound of a shovel digging in the backyard. The next morning, I asked where Grandma went. And Dad told me, Grandma is in the backyard. I went to check in the backyard. There was a small pile of dirt with some of Grandma's favorite old items placed beside it. That was likely where Grandma was buried.
我觉得还是不行。
什么不行？
咱妈葬的不行，咱不该就这么葬了她。一会儿我要去镇上买一件寿衣，一口棺材，再把咱妈葬一次，至少要和咱爹葬在一起啊。
这得花多少钱？我们哪来这么多钱？
拿粮食换吧。我算了算，不多，也就半个月的粮。
半个月的粮，那可是我们半个月的命，不行。
又不多，我越想越不对，咱妈死了不能就这么囫囵埋了。咱没钱给她办得风光，至少也得买个棺材给她安个家呀。咱再穷也有个屋子住，不能让咱妈成了孤魂野鬼。至于粮， 我只好有办法弄。
Dad said to Mom, his voice gradually growing louder. Not long after, the room was filled with Mom's sobbing, Dad's angry shouts, and my younger brother's crying. I stood frozen in the backyard, staring at the small mound of dirt where Grandma was buried, my hand resting on top of it. I didn't dare to return to the house, afraid to confront my parents who were arguing. Man, we're already at the present, going through, what you call, seeing what's gonna happen, and then once and if they're delivered to the quote-unquote swine demon, and now we gotta endure a more tragic past too. Jeez. It didn't take long for my parents to stop talking about the burial. At noon, a tax official came. This tax official brought 2 official soldiers, and they kicked our door open the second they got here.
哎，交粮了啊！我们来收8斗米的粮。有粮交粮，没粮的拿等量的银子换。
The tax official shouted loudly, and while the other 2 soldiers started rummaging through our house.
关老爷是不是走错门了？不是年前刚交了粮，不该再交粮啊！
住你们旁边的那户人家跑了，你们不知道？
Oh, you guys are asses.
啊，您是说沈家吗？他们跑了，这我们不知道啊。
管他沈家王家，他们跑了，你必须得知道。按照朝廷律法，他们跑了没人交粮，我便要从你这儿收粮。
不行，不行啊，关老爷，这么多年我还是头一回知道这律法。
那是你知道晚了，这都是上头的命令，我也是给上头办事的，也不知好歹。
关老爷，我们是真的没粮了呀！前年大旱，去年也是大旱，连着2年没有下一滴雨，种的东西早死完了。我们家还有2个小娃要养，每天吃了上顿没下顿，还在想着去哪儿借粮呢。这
God, I feel so bad for this family, man.
头儿，他们有粮，看这缸里至少藏了1袋。
拿8斗出来。
哎，不能拿，不能拿！哎，关老爷，我求求你们了，这都是我们的活命粮啊，真不能拿呀！要么你们别往上跑，3个老爷每人拿1斗米走吧，好不好？
滚蛋！老子也不想你们家娃子饿死，大发慈悲给你们留了2斗米。你们别吵，再吵我们把剩下的也拿走。
I heard Dad's pleading voice and the sound of the official soldiers shoving him around. They drew their swords, rummaged through our belongings, packed the grain we relied on to survive into bags, and then took those bags away. Dad and Mom were beaten by them, and my younger brother kept crying. In the end, they still took the grain away. I stayed in the backyard, crouched on the ground, and covered my ears since I was too afraid to listen.
这些个帮客兵贼，都他好死的玩意儿！
After the tax official and the official soldiers left, Dad slammed his fist against the wall, cursing bitterly in frustration.
刚才你还想着要给娘买棺材，现在倒好，我们4口人只有2斗米，连1个月都活不了。才儿、穗儿，我、你，我们一家子都要饿死了。
别哭了，我之前就说了有办法的。
有什么办法？娘卖了后院那宝贝。
不行，娘死前特别说了，传家宝怎么着也不能卖。
那怎么办？
我以前就想过，实在没办法的时候，就带着我爹当年留下来的那堆东西去演影子戏。
This better not be how he dies. Dad sighed, his hand resting on the edge of the bed as he spoke to
吴
Mom.
当真，戏子是最贱的下九流。你爹当初好不容易摆脱了这身份，说不许你再演的。
现在这光景，再演也是没办法。影子戏再贱，也是一门手艺。这手艺，若是能让我们活下来，那我就必须得演。
你去什么地方演？
去临镇，甘泉那边。
要是被熟人瞧见了怎么办？
如今这世道，瞧见就瞧见了呗，先活下来最重要啊！我收拾一下，今天就赶路去隔壁镇子，演上几天，换到足够的粮后就来找你们。
As Dad spoke, he began rummaging through the wooden chest under the bed. Inside the wooden box were the items Grandpa had left him for performing shadow play.
爹，我也要去。
I heard Dad packing, so I hurried into the room, eager to join him. A couple of years back, Dad taught me a bit of drumming and shadow manipulating, giving me a rough idea of how to perform.
孙儿，演影子戏剑，你不能去。
是啊，你这小女娃凑什么热闹？若是落下了闲话，你以后都嫁不出去。
Dad and Mom both forbade me from going after hearing that I wanted to perform shadow play.
闲话就闲话吧。爹爹也说了，现在我们能活下来最重要。我也想给家里出一份力。
Plus, did you forget, Dad?
你以前说了，影子戏至少要4只手才能演好，而且我也想多学一门手艺。
I muttered to my parents, my eyes pleading.
行吧，多个谋生的手艺也好。
Dad sighed reluctantly, seemingly agreeing to let me accompany him. Dad and I walked out the door, heading to town on foot. Dad carried the wooden box in one hand and held mine in the other as we made our way to the neighboring town. The town next to our village is called Gonquan. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. Despite its name meaning sweet spring, just like our village, it had also been affected by the drought, with no spring to be seen. However, Dad mentioned that during major disasters, life in the city is better than in town, and life in the town is better than in the village. With more people around, there are mutual support, preventing as many deaths or escapes. We arrived at Gonquan town in the evening. As soon as we got to the town, Dad found open space by the street. And this is how she learned how to shadow play. He lit a bonfire and rummaged through the wooden box. Before long, he set up the white screen for shadow play.
瞧一瞧，看一看，来看影子戏喽！武松打虎，3英战吕布，牛郎织女，100铜钱开演，有钱捧个钱场，没钱捧个人场。
Dad called out at the street, attracting passersby to watch the show. As he threaded the shadow puppets onto bamboo sticks, he continued his pitch to attract passersby. Dad's voice was a little quiet and a bit strained. Despite the bustling crowd, no one stopped to watch. I was bored to death, so I started chatting with Dad.
爹爹，你在给什么小人穿竹签啊？
我在给吕布穿竹签儿，一会儿若是谁点了3英战吕布，我便能立即给他演，不用他在旁边等了。
那我来帮爹爹吧。
好啊，那你穿这个张翼德吧。
这是张翼德，关云长是哪个呀？
这个。
Dad worked on Lubu while he pointed out Guan Yu for me.
瞧一瞧，看一看，来看影子戏，100铜钱开演喽！
That kid has a very adult face. Dad continued threading the bamboo sticks while calling out loudly. Half an hour passed, but still no one paid any money. However, a few people did gather around. 3 beggarly-looking uncles and 2 kids who looked even younger than me formed a circle around us. They curiously watched Dad and our setup, but didn't say a word.
爹爹，为什么没有人掏钱呢？
I leaned in close to Dad's ear and asked him softly.
看来，这个镇上的人懂行啊。
Dad whispered in my ear.
懂行？
影子戏得等到完全天黑的时候才好看。现在太阳刚落山，懂行的人呢都不看。
Dad had finished threading all the puppets under the bamboo sticks and was waiting for the first paying audience. He gave a faint smile, appearing quite relaxed as if he didn't care how the business was doing. Another hour passed. It was gradually getting dark out. The sky became quite dark, making us brighter by comparison. Still, no one paid. But there were more spectators around us. We were surrounded by 4 beggars, 3 kids, and an old grandma and grandpa who even got their own stools. But still, nobody paid any money. And Dad's expression grew darker. He wasn't looking relaxed anymore. He seemed rather grim.
爹爹，好像还是没人掏钱，人挺多啦。我们要不先演？
先演吧。
Dad nodded in agreement, offering a simple response to my suggestion. It seemed like he was ready to perform. He intended to showcase the shadow play to the people around, then persuade them to pay later. Dad handed me the drum and crouched down to organize things. With squinting eyes, he adjusted the frame, supporting the white screen. The firelight cast a glow on the white screen, tinting Dad's face with a reddish hue. Beads of sweat formed on his temples, trickled down his cheek, and gathered at his chin. He closed his eyes, then opened them again. He took a deep breath, grunted at the onlookers, and finally began to sing.
白袍，无价素宝金，丈八蛇矛手内围。
This guy has a rocker voice too.
鲸鱼吕布去交战，贼命难逃仗义得。
Dad sang loudly while controlling Zhang Fei in his hand. Zhang Fei entered the stage on a horse, wielding the serpent spear in his hand. He darted from one side to the other, charging back and forth behind the white screen. I was captivated.
Sir.
Dad called out to me softly and gave me a nod. It was then that I realized he was urging me to beat the drum. I quickly picked up the drum and started beating it in a lively rhythm.
催马来至两军阵，叫马贼人来交锋哎。
Dad controlled Zhang Fei and sang another line, accompanied by my drumming. The audience cheered and applauded enthusiastically. Seemingly encouraged by the warm applause, Dad sang with even more fervor. To keep up with Dad's rhythm, I also worked even harder on the drumming. The drum beat echoed, blending seamlessly with the surrounding applause and providing a rhythmic accompaniment to Dad's singing. Let's hope he gets some money for it.
三英战吕布演完了，演出不易，劳烦各位看官多赏点铜板。若是没有铜板，也可以给些粮食，我们什么都要。多谢，多谢。
After the performance, Dad stepped forward to the front of the white screen and bowed to the audience. Meanwhile, he was handing over the wooden box to the audience, hoping someone in the crowd would toss a coin in or two. However, the audience exchanged looks for a few seconds before dispersing in different directions. No one gave us any food, let alone money. All that remained were scattered sunflower hulls, the dying embers of the bonfire, and the mocking waves of laughter drifting in the far. Wow.
真是一群穷鬼，戏都看了，钱是一点都不给。
Dad angrily muttered a curse as he set the wooden box down beside him. After performing for so long, he not only failed to earn any money or food, but also drove away the audience.
整个镇子都受了大灾，家家都囤着钱粮救命，哪能为了看戏花钱呢？
As Dad sat there resigned, an elderly man approached from afar.
趁早回家吧，啊，一会儿冷了，别让你女娃着凉。
He sighed, then walked past the white screen and placed something in Dad's wooden box. I leaned over and peeked into the wooden box. It was a perfectly intact ear of corn. Each kernel gleamed like yellow jewels under the moonlight. Oh, that's a nice old man. After that, Dad stopped performing shadow play. He packed the items into the wooden box one by one, and I helped him tidy up. Unable to find a place to sleep, we then decided to spend the night in the rundown temple in town. Inside the temple was hay spread out with 3 beggars sleeping on one side and us on the other. These 3 beggars had also watched the show earlier. When they saw Dad arrive, they whispered and chuckled mockingly from a distance. Dad didn't say anything. He held me in his arms without saying a word as we huddled on one side of the temple.
爹爹，为什么这些人都不给钱呢？
I leaned against my dad and asked him with my hands grabbing his rough tunic.
是不是100铜钱太贵了？50个铜钱，可能就有人给钱了。
I think it's like what the wife said, that paying for something like this is below them. Like apparently doing shadow play is something to be embarrassed about. Don't know why, it was pretty cool. I like seeing it. But then again, for that time, it was probably seen as something, what you call, not to be practiced at all. I clenched his rough tunic tightly.
我觉得就是太贵了，戏挺好看的，就是贵，所以才没人看。爹爹，你怎么不说话呀？
I suddenly raised my voice.
别吵了！
Dad yelled angrily before turning around and gripping my shoulder fiercely, as if he was going to crush it. His shout made my body tremble violently. Coupled with the strength of his grip, I felt both pain and fear. I stared at Dad with my eyes wide open. It was my first time seeing Dad this mad. It was as if he transformed into a different person who shared no resemblance with him whatsoever. He was petty, irritable, and volatile, completely devoid of the gentle demeanor he had shown me years ago when he gave me the sweet potato to eat. What was wrong with him? Well, he became a desperate man. I get it. It's unfortunate, it's tragic, and it sucks. I felt aggrieved and wanted to cry. My nose tingled and my ears swirled in my eyes for a bit before they began to fall uncontrollably.
Sir.
Seeing me cry, Dad suddenly panicked. The light in his eyes flickered, and his mouth twitched a few times. He then reached over and hugged me tightly, pulling me into his arms.
Sir, 对不起啊，爹爹不该凶你的，对不起，对不起啊。
On the straw mat, Dad held me in his arms and apologized to me with a crying tone tinged with self-blame. I held on to Dad and cried uncontrollably. It was as if my emotions found an outlet, and all the pent-up grievances and fears turned into tears. I didn't blame Dad. I knew it was hard for him. It had been too hard for him. That's why he was like this. Dad slept for a bit with me in his arms. I didn't sleep for long before I began asking Dad some questions out of concern.
爹爹，我会死吗？
不会的，我不会让你死的。
那爹爹会死吗？
人早晚都要死的。爹爹暂时不会死，因为要养穗儿和彩儿。至少要看你们长大了，爹爹那时候才能死啊。
不行，我不让爹爹死，爹爹不能死，不能死。
好，好，爹爹不死，不死啊！
I'm telling you, man, these actors are talented. I'm feeling it, and I don't like it. I started crying again while hugging my dad. This time, I was the one who hugged him tighter. He also responded by embracing me back, gently patting my back to comfort me. I had no idea when I fell asleep as well. I just remembered lying in my dad's arms, and it felt really warm. The next day, we woke up in the rundown temple. In the early morning, we headed to the only pawn shop in Gonquan Town. Dad sold the wooden box Grandpa left him, exchanging it for 500 copper coins. Then he made several trips to the households in town, exchanging coins for food. At noon, Dad held my hand while carrying a basket of food as we headed in the direction of our home. On our way back, I stole a glance at Dad. He looked very tired, with a pale face and a mixture of uneven white hairs amongst his dark ones. Since when was it like this? Dad got old all of a sudden, and he stopped smiling too. Stress. That'll do that to you. Man, it's funny how I much prefer the present time storytelling than I do the flashbacks, because the flashbacks I already know is going to be sad, like incredibly so. And also, I like the focus on Liang.
怎么啦，梁？怎么不说话了？你还是处了呀？不打算干了？
I'm more worried that Liang might actually have to hurt his friend, even to the point of actually killing him if he has to defend the girls. I mean, I don't like Tung, but I feel like he and this guy have been really good friends, at the very least, you know? But also, Tung is not the type to really side with him on this type of situation either. In the woods, Tung spilled it all. After he smirked, waiting on my answer, I slammed him against a tree, arm to his neck. You son of a bitch! You didn't tell me those lambs were meant for lamb dishes! You said this job was about feeding the lambs and sending them off to rich folks as daughters. All fucking bullshit! I yelled at Tung, muscles tense, my face twisted in anger.
喂，你他妈怎么还急眼了呢？
Cause those lambs, you actually call them, are little girls, dude.
我一开始也不知道这活是这样的，要不是向李贵打听，谁他妈能知道？这种活咱们怎么可能一开始就知道？但是1人500两银子，咱们不做也有其他人做。
I continued to glare angrily at Tung, my eyes blazing with fury.
呀，看开点，咱一起干活这么多年了，手上也没少沾血。死在你手里的人，没有80也有50了。虽说你从来没有杀过妇孺啊，但若是离家在外的男人死了，刘家的没了顶梁柱，早晚也要死全家。嘿，少在这跟我假清高。 你以往没直接杀小羊，但早不知害死了多少小羊了。那这次的活儿也不是让你直接杀小羊，又有什么区别呢？
I stayed quiet. Tung's words hit me hard. My determination wavered, and my arm pressing against him eased up.
他妈的梁！想想那年的京城大爆炸，不管是好人坏人，男人女人一下就给炸没了。
Tung shoved me hard, breaking free from my grip.
天道本就是无常的，好人不一定长命百岁，坏人也不一定就会遭报应。世上的一切，人说了都不算，只有老天爷说了算。不管我们是好人还是坏人，哪一天说死就死了，那我们为什么不为自己活着？啊，我们活得更好，这有什么不对？
Tung tidied up his clothes. Teeth clenched and spoke to me with frustration. I lowered my head and pondered his words, remaining silent.
梁，你自己考虑考虑吧。我最后再提醒你2句。这事儿咱们办了，先不说荣华富贵，攀了这种级别的大贵人，哪怕之后咱被官府捉住，也没人敢砍咱们，因为他需要咱们给他做事儿。
Do you really want to be under the pull of that guy, though? Really? Again, understandably desperate times in these types of time periods, but even then, like, I feel like you guys would survive.
这事儿咱们不办，也一定会有其他人去办。天下都是人家的，若是反抗他，只有一个结果，没命！呸！
With that, Tung spat and headed back towards the camp. I stood there, memories of the blood rain from the 6th year of Tianxi flooding my mind. After that explosion, everything I cherished became meaningless. Wealth, emotions, bonds, even principles. The words I never said to my father, the ones he never spoke to me. My dreams, his dreams, our conflicts, all lost their significance. I've been living in emptiness, like a walking corpse. I should have known better. Nothing matters except staying alive. But if I never knew these lambs, their fate wouldn't concern me in the slightest. Now that I do, can I really send them to the swine demon? No, we can't, sir. No, we can't. I didn't give Tung a clear answer and returned to the camp alone afterwards. Back at camp, I should have slept, but I couldn't. Watching the lambs slumber, thoughts raced through my mind. Hong and Q. Those sisters were from poor backgrounds. The older one looked after the younger, who despite her age was quite sensible. Then there's Xianghua. Her father was originally a lofty official, but was exiled to the border due to political changes causing the family to fall. Despite it all, she's smart and reasonable, quite mature. Mansui, the smartest, knew it all from the start, seeking vengeance for her sister. She wasn't scared to die, and she's sharp. Always aimed to go after that big shot. No, to take down that swine demon for revenge. I was not too hopeful, but had to admit, if she can keep that blade hidden and catch him off guard, that swine demon just might meet his end at her hands. After all, when she came at me with that blade, she was swift and decisive. A regular person might have been caught off guard. Can she pull it off? If she messes up, what's the swine demon gonna do to her? And if she pulls it off, what chaos would that stir up in Luoyang or beyond? And then, will I be implicated for sending her there? Well, goddamn. That's true. I almost dozed off with unanswered questions. Slept about 2 hours, then Tung woke me to switch shifts. We kept watch a bit longer, then hit the road again the next day. We got to Shanzhou in about 4 hours. Before reaching the gate, we untied the ropes from the lamb's waist. Tung reminded them sternly not to cause any trouble. At the gate, guards checked our pass from Yinsan. After a few questions about the lambs, we got into Shanzhou. The streets of Shanzhou were wide and bustling, with a sense of prosperity, unlike Huazhou and Wencheng. Perhaps due to our eastward journey, there were fewer refugees giving the streets an illusion of peace and prosperity. There were vendors, traveling merchants, and even performing monkeys. A monkey trainer with a turban guided 3 monkeys through a series of tricks, prompting spectators to drop silvers in their copper bowl. Oh, they get silvers? But when someone performs freaking shadow play, it's a freaking problem? After a stroll, Tung led us to a grim inn located in a secluded part of the city. This inn was similar to the ones in Huazhou and Wenchang, situated in a remote area of the city. This inn only catered to special guests like us on a mission.
妈的，走了这么多天，终于到陕州了。哎呦，哎，瞧这道修的啊，宽，这么宽才算是大城市啊，是不是啊，梁？嘿嘿，梁爷不愧是去过京城的人啊，陕州城都瞧不上了。
I stayed silent. Tung smirked and I brushed it off.
一会儿咱们先去客栈，今天都休息好了啊，好吃好喝，第2天咱们再出发。星爷今天高兴，自掏腰包请你们吃顿好的，想吃啥等会儿跟我说，到时候找个厨子烧个菜，咱在客栈里摆桌。
Tung led the way, speaking to the lambs following behind. He tried to cheer up the lambs, but they remained somber. Maybe the lambs sensed the tension between us. None of them seemed cheerful.
来，都说说想吃什么？哎，说呀啊，不用跟我客气啊，想吃什么说什么。来，小翠你先说。
肉馒头。
什么？大点声！
星爷，我妹子想吃肉馒头。
行，记住。
我想吃菜馒头，咸菜的最好，没有的话就要白菜的。
哟吼，你是小羊倒挺挑啊！哎，那到时候找找吧。其他人呢？
想吃鱼，什么鱼都行。
肉馒头、菜馒头、鱼，那等会儿就买这些。哦，小哑巴说不了话。阿良，你想吃什么？
Anything's fine for me.
好，那要不你和小哑巴出门去买些菜，再补充一些咱之后吃的干粮，银子我给。
No need. I'll handle the money. But why me and her?
他不能说话，不能说想吃啥，那他跟你去想吃啥，你给他买啊。再说了，你买这么多东西，不是也缺个帮着提溜的人吗？
With a grin, Tung urged me and Mansui to hurry up and buy rations, insisting we come back to him for money. I knew exactly why he wanted Mansui and me to go shopping together. When we arrived at the city, it was customary to replenish our supplies. Usually, Tung took care of this task. He was more eloquent, sophisticated, and skilled at bargaining. However, this time he specifically instructed me to buy groceries, probably due to his lack of trust in me. My failure to give a clear response to it last night likely contributed to this suspicion. He didn't want me staying at the inn anymore, fearing what I might say to the 4 lambs if left alone with them. He even worried I might set them free. The reason he was fine with Mansui coming with me was that he thought she was mute and less likely to cause trouble. Alright, you stay at the inn, keep an eye on the other lambs. I'll take her shopping. I glanced at Tung, then at Mansui. Then I grabbed the silver and the bundle and head out with Mansui.